I should do this before I press the record, but that's not my deal. You've known me, or you've seen these long enough where you know I'm kind of on the fly. But you know what's going to happen is while I'm recording, this thing is going to keep falling. All right. Oh, hi. I'm Sarah. I discovered my psychic mediumship intuitive abilities a couple years ago. And with that, I've experimented and I have convinced myself that this is something I can actually do. And I think other people have been convinced of this as well. And so here I am on my spiritual journey and have created a mission for myself to help people become aware of this possibility for yourself. And doing that through my journey and sharing what I've learned along the way. And hopefully, it'll help inspire you or at least create that possibility that this is something you can do too. Okay. And you're going to hear this stuff when I start doing the podcast, but this is a video recording of me recording my podcast. So you get to see sort of the raw, uncut, true to life me and how I actually talk, and that I'm not as eloquent as I maybe come across in the podcast because that is not really how it works. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get this episode started. We're talking about divination today. And I'll tell you a little my background about that once we get the podcast going. And maybe at first I really wasn't into the divination stuff, but I can see how it could be a good thing for people. Okay, you ready? Are you ready? Am I ready? All right, let me get my notes up here. Okay. Now, just a reminder that this stuff is on my blog at nextgenmedium.com. I also post my podcast up on my website as well in the podcast section. Go to my website. You got door 1, door 2. You can either look into getting a reading, which is stuff that I do, or you can look at development stuff. And that sounds like something you'd be interested in. So go to my website, nextgenmedium.com. And right there, you'll be able to click on that development section, and that'll take you to my blog, my podcast, and my blog. So you can see everything all right there, however, which way you want to do it. We can do video, we can do audio, you can read it. It's all there. Okay, let me get comfy. Okay. All right. Hope everybody's faring well. Okay. All right. All right. How am I going to start this? All right. The great thing about the soul journey is it's all individual to each of us. And how we go about doing that is going to be different for all of us. For some people, like myself, I came across it, I think, at a time in my life when I already had some stuff built up of my soul abilities, my soul senses, and I think I was strong with my intuition as well. And I think I just kind of stepped into it with, I don't know, the understanding that this was a possibility for me. Maybe not 100% like this, I'm going to do this. It was more of, let's see what happens. I'm open. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then it turned out that, geez, I can kind of do this stuff. And then there's other people who may have a journey where divination is a part of their soul journey, a part of the process of getting to know your psychic intuitive abilities, maybe mediumship in there too. I think of divination as more of psychic and intuitive. But I wanted to talk about divination today. I think we've talked about it. We've touched upon it before, but I think we're going to talk more in this episode about how it could help the process. Now, it can definitely help the process. I can see how that could be a thing, but I can also see it hindering process as well, or maybe masking process. So we're going to talk about that divination, a tool to help you connect with your higher self, to inspire your psychic intuitive abilities. And that is this episode on NextGen Medium, the podcast. I hope I have enough material for a half-hour podcast. That's always my goal, actually being able to do that. We'll see. Because I don't think this one's very deep. Okay. All right, now I got to talk about me. I got to introduce myself. I'm almost 40 episodes in. You would think I wouldn't have to do this anymore, but I'm egotistic and I like to hear myself talk. So, hey, I'm Sarah Nickerson. I discovered my psychic intuitive mediumship abilities a few years ago. I am by no means a master, which is why you should listen to me, because before finding out my psychic intuitive mediumship abilities, I had no idea that this was a world that I could be a part of, that these were skills that I could actually access, and that I now know is something I can depend on, and a little piece of truth that has opened up the possibilities of my world. Now, with that being said, I also believe that everybody is capable of crossing that threshold and getting to see this truth for themselves. What are your abilities? What are your truths you have yet to uncover and discover and get to know more about being what it's like to live your life as a whole human being? And we can't do that if we don't ignore and we don't try to discover this stuff. Of course, you know, some people aren't even aware that these are things. I don't know how you could not be aware with all the stuff in movies and everything, but I think it's more important that you understand that it is possible in this world and that you too can connect with this stuff. It's a birthright. Okay? All right. My goal is to raise awareness that this is a possibility for you. From there, I've got tips and tricks to help you from my own journey that I can pass along, truths that I hold that I like to share. And with that, I hope to help bring you cross the threshold into this new soul abilities world where you can start your own journey to find out more about yourself, to find out more about what you are capable of doing. And I can do that, and I want to help. Okay, so that's who I am. That's my mission. Now, we're going to be talking about some tools. Specifically, we're going to go into divination. Now, when I think of divination, I think of crystal balls. I think of tarot cards, tarot. I say tarot. Maybe pendulums and other sort of these physical tools that we can hold on to, that we can sort of, I don't know, harness. And we can create messaging with these tools. And for a while, even before I started, even before my spiritual awakening, when this world was not possible to me, I felt very skeptical of those kinds of things. There is still a degree of skepticism. However, now that I've crossed the thresholds, I have confidence and security. That's my furnace. That's Fred. Hey, Fred, what's happening, bud? Um, Now that I've gained insight that I attribute to my truth and living in that pillar of solid energy, um, that's the way I kind of visualize it in my head. Um, I can now see how divination could be really helpful to someone exploring their psychic intuitive selves, their higher selves, the messaging that goes along with that stuff. And so I wanted to talk about that. I also wanted to talk about kind of how I can relate to it, because I myself don't use divination stuff, but I can see it being helpful. So I do want to pass that information along, as well as what divination can't do. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's understand the concept of tools and their purpose for developing psychic or intuitive skills, soul abilities, stuff like that. I think when I was like 12 years old, I bought my first tarot deck. I never really learned how to use a tarot deck. I think it's like 72 cards. Each card has its own meaning. Um, I am a very visual person, so I loved the idea of having something to hold that had pictures and that this could be something that could predict someone's future or get to know someone in a way that you didn't know them, but the cards are telling you about them. Um, and so I think on this episode, we're really going to kind of go into that tarot world. Not get to know the process, but how the process can be universal for someone who is looking to develop that psychic intuitive stuff, using it as a tool to inspire. So I never really got into divination. I think I had a couple things here and there, runes and dice, but I never really got too much into it. Um, I think astrology was more something I was interested in, which looks like can be a part of that divination world. Divination meaning using something to tell you the future, right, of someone else, or to garner information that you wouldn't know by quote unquote ordinary means. Take a sip of my Pike Place here. It's getting cold. So, when it comes to my own psychic, intuitive, and mediumship journey, I'm not including mediumship in this episode. I don't see the link. That doesn't mean it's not there. But I want to speak from a place of like possibility in my world. And I definitely think divination has possibility to help you with this stuff. But in my journey, I have yet to really utilize any divination stuff. And I'm also going to throw in like crystals and gems and like I do smudge. Um with sage, you light it and you direct the smoke. Am I 100% bought into that? No, but I'm open to a possibility and I kind of like the way it smells. So even though when people walk in the house and they're going, "Hey Sarah, what are you smoking?" It's like, no, it's my sage. It's my sage. Someone gave it to me as a present and I want to use it. I'm warding off evil spirits, or I don't think it's that. I think it's cleansing the energy. I think that's really what it is, neutralizing that energy. But which I am a believer in energy. Like I am a believer in that. But when it comes to divination, I don't really have experience with using it. I've never had to use it. I get my psychic, intuitive mediumship stuff in my brain, and somehow I can switch it on and off just with my thoughts, just with my intentions. And this is something that's going to come back a little bit later in the podcast. But I, I, I guess I am an example of someone who hasn't used divination, and to show that uh, receiving messaging or information by unnatural means, unordinary means, is possible without divination. What I tell you, this thing is a sinking ship. Hopefully that's not a metaphor of this episode. Okay, let's see if that holds. Now I'm probably out of the picture. Let me check my video here. Okay, that's not terrible. Okay, maybe I can talk like a normal person instead of having that in front of my face. So we're going to use the example of tarot cards. Tarot cards, they have pictures on them. The way you do a reading, you can just have someone pick a card from the deck and it's got a message behind the card. Like there's a picture to it, but there's also a meaning behind the card. And then there's also with tarot, like layouts, multiple cards, and where the card is placed has a meaning to itself. So not just the meaning of the card, but where the card is placed in a layout tells you a little bit more information that is trying to be relayed. And so I can see divination being a way for spirits, the source, to be working directly with the cards to direct the psychic intuitive towards messaging. Okay, so we're kind of getting into this deep already. But like I said, the tarot cards are a tool. In the instance of tarot cards, they have pictures, right? And you look at the picture, and maybe to a psychic intuitive, looking at the picture maybe gives a direction to focus on. And so having a direction to focus on allows for the psychic intuitive to go inside with their clairvoyance, with their clairaudience, with their clair whatever, or intuitive, their clair empathy, clairsentience, and allow for that message to become more full of information, depending on what's received internally, in the mind, felt with the body. These are ways that you use your psychic senses. Your senses are your tools too. But I think more so, it's a way to broaden, no, it's a way to narrow the message from just this brief insight from a tarot card. So a tarot card is very basic, basic information. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's an emotion, maybe it's I don't know if a reaction that doesn't make sense because I just said emotion. Um, a situation, and it kind of helps narrow down what exactly one of these things could be. But it's also up to the intuitive and psychic to narrow it down even further, using their soul senses, using that direction and keeping going. Metaphor time. Metaphor time. Metaphor time. Okay. Think of it like a slingshot. The tarot card gives you the information for you to take it in. You're pulling it back, figuratively, like you're pulling back a slingshot. Once the information is sort of given to the psychic intuitive, that's when that information, that inspiration helps the psychic intuitive narrow down the message by letting go of that pebble in the slingshot. And that's when the energy is taken in. I don't know if this makes any sense. By the psychic intuitive to go forth with their own messaging, to narrow down what exactly this entails. What does this mean? You need to be evidential with it. It's hard with psychic stuff when you're doing future stuff, but if you can't have a narrow message and it's very broad, I don't think that could connect very well with people as sort of I believe that this person is really, doing a reading on me. Now, there's plenty of people out there that can do a tarot reading, right? They just got to learn the layouts. They got to learn what the cards mean. And I bet there's a lot of people out there that don't even use their psychic intuitive abilities when they do it. It's more or less, this is what I learned, and I'm just connecting the pieces and blah, blah, blah. There's a certain place you got to go to in your mind to allow for those psychic senses to kick in when you're using your tools. You don't just use the tools and shut off the creativity. And maybe there's some people that don't even realize that they're tapping into their psychic intuitive abilities while they're doing tarot readings. So I've gone to a tarot reading since my awakening. And what I witnessed was cards turning, and she would tell me what the card was, but she would be able to go inside and give me her feelings, her knowings. Um, that was tapping into her psychic intuitive abilities. So not only did she use these tools, but they helped direct her. And I think that's important to take away when it comes to stuff with divination is just because you turn a card and it has a meaning and you say the meaning, that does not mean that this is the process. The process is also internal. It's also influencing where your psychic intuitive messaging is going to go from there. It's just a start. It's just getting you started. Um, when you turn your car on, you turn the key, the ignition started, right? But you're not going anywhere. Tarot cards are turning on the engine. And then it's up to the psychic intuitive to put it in drive and use your tools, or else you aren't speaking with the source, with your higher self. And that's what this is all about. Okay. So there's a couple things we got going on here when we're talking about divination. We're talking about control of the source, sort of having a direct control, because once you get further in the process of having a trust with the source, the divine, God, there's sort of an understanding developed that nothing is chance and that what has been chosen for you was chosen by divine, what is it? Divine, Nyeh. Divine chance. It was chosen on purpose for a particular reason, whatever is intended. You know what I mean? So, when you're working with divination, there's sort of a direct relationship with source, um, selecting what comes up. The chance is not, in fact, chance. It's meant to be. Okay. But then you also have the channeling of the intuitive, the psychic, that has some say in what's going on as well, received through those soul senses, your clairs. Okay. So I think it's an interesting way for the divine to be more involved, more so than maybe I allow them to be, it to be. But the messaging I get is coming from spirit, So I can see that divination is more of a tool when it comes to giving direction for the psychic or intuitive, and not so much a a stronger sense of being connected to the source or God or the divine. That's something that I didn't have in my notes so far. Okay, so talking about divination, I do want to make sure I'm very clear about how I can see this being an important step in someone's process and how it's really part of the process. And the way I like to put it is using divination can be included in the process, but it's not just the process itself. Turning a card and stating the name of the card and saying where it is in the layout of the cards you have using your tarot cards, that is just a piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean? It's really up to the psychic intuitive to be able to resonate with that card, to be able to be inspired by that card. Give them direction so that when they close their eyes, they hear messaging, more messaging coming through that's more narrow to pinpoint more details about whatever that card's supposed to mean. Maybe they see it visually, maybe they hear it. I don't know. But that's just, you know. semantics. So, what would be important for someone choosing to use a tool is to understand its role in communication using your higher self, soul abilities, and soul senses. It is a compass, not the magnetic poles. It is the sail. It is not the blowing wind. It's so poetic. It's starting the engine. It's not putting the car in drive. So tools are just that. They're a way for you to do something a little easier in a different way, perhaps a better way for you individually. It gets you there, but it's not the thing that puts you there. Does that make any sense? It inspires, it does not create. It is the sail, it is not the blowing wind. That's dumb. So, with that being said, I do worry about people that are naturally gravitated to the divination stuff and thinking that flipping a card and just saying what it is and where it is placed in the layout is doing psychic intuitive work. Like, that is not right, because there is an internal process that needs to happen as well, where there's something to be added to the message that is the job of the intuitive psychic or psychic, intuitive and or psychic. So one thing I do worry about is that tools can be used mistakenly in that way. Um, Mistaking that there is an actual connection with spirits with what's going on. Of course, if you believe that divination is a way for spirit to directly select what's happening, to directly influence what card is flipped, where that card is placed, the number that the dice fall on, the specific runes that are taken out of a bag. Um, there's definitely that piece. But to say that you can put cards in a layout and flip them and just rehash, this is what this card means and it's here, so that means that. That is not the complete process. And so it needs to be stated that that's only part of the process. So there's part of that awareness, right? That awareness that needs to be communicated to people who want to practice divination. But I also do worry that people could use their divination tools as a crutch. They need these tools in order to do their psychic intuitive work. There's something very freeing to me when I think about, oh man, if I had to be held back by needing my tarot cards with me at all times, what if I didn't have the right deck? What if I felt like my energy was not connected with this new deck and here I am doing a reading on, like, oh my god, I don't know. I don't know if I could deal with that. But if you are a person that um is intrigued by the divination, and I don't blame you. I do worry about people thinking that they need that tool in order to do their psychic intuitive work. And I just don't think you should be holding yourself back with that. So I can definitely see how there could be, hmm, I could see how someone could have sort of this mental block develop that thinks I need to have this tool in order to do this work. But but I think this really, what I really want to hit home with this episode is that you understand that these are tools and they're not the end all be all for communication with spirit or higher selves or whatever. I think these tools could be a great way for us to open the lines of communication and focus on subject areas that use your soul abilities, but they are just tools. Just like a computer is a tool. You need a brain to use the computer. You need your soul senses, your soul abilities in order to do divination the way it's intended to be used. I will say there is one positive I can see from divination other than kind of helping the blossoming psychic intuitive, giving them direction, giving them a little bit of confidence to go in a particular way with their messaging. And one way that I could see this being a benefit, if this is something you continue to do, have divination a part of your process, as much as I don't want you to have it as a crutch, is having a physical way. How do I put this? One thing I have found difficult during my journey discovering my psychic intuitive mediumship abilities is having a way to turn it off. There are times when it turns on, I don't even realize it, and I start going in that direction. And especially lately, where when I'm sitting in front of a computer and I'm doing a reading, or when I'm sitting in front of a computer and I'm talking to someone, I'm in a place of they are here to talk to me about psychic, intuitive mediumship, their development, whoever's on the other side of the screen or the camera, or they're here to talk to me about to get a reading. And there have been a couple times when here I am sitting in my spot and it's just kind of ingrained in me to be in the spot and to open and to do a reading. And so because of the routine of sitting in my spot and being open, it's kind of natural for me to get in that groove. I think if you had a physical thing that was sort of the access, kind of your switch, I think having that physical thing would be better if you have a hard time disengaging or re-engaging. Having that physical thing um, is preparing you to open up, as opposed to me sitting around in my spot and naturally just opening up because this is where I do my thing, you know? I think it's ingrained in my routine. If I'm sitting here, ingrained in my place of space, this is where I work, you know, this is where I do my thing. And there has been at least one instance when I was talking with a professional and I started opening up. And he said something along the lines of, "You're reading me now, aren't you?" He knew I was a psychic medium intuitive. And from there, it was automatic for me to go to that place. And it turned out maybe I made him uncomfortable opening up and really getting to know and to be delivering messaging or stuff like that. And I think I made him really uncomfortable because this is my space. This is where I do my thing. And I look back on it now and I'm like really embarrassed about it. But that was my bad. But if you have these tools that are your physical reminder, or your physical um what's it called? It's like your permission to do it. I have it in my hands. This person is here. They have the intention of wanting a reading. And so having that physical thing is is the permission to open up. Whereas me with no tools, it opens up sometimes and I don't even realize it, or it rarely does it close off by itself. But it's more of, and I'm not aware. It's more of it opens up and I'm not aware and I start receiving and then I kind of get lost in my own world. Um, so I don't have that physical thing to give me permission to open that door, you know what I mean? So I can see how divination could be helpful in turning it on or closing it up. I got my cards in my pack. I'm closing it. It is gone. I am closed. And that's kind of a nice thing, and I'm the kind of person where it's hard for me to turn off sometimes with work, with um well, everything's work, really. But Yeah, so I think if you have difficulties turning off, maybe adopting a physical thing to have with you, even if it's not divination, if it's a crystal, if it's whatever, I don't know, maybe a specific piece of jewelry that you wear. There's also the thought that the energy you use during those times could be sort of captured in that object. And so maybe it could help be your boost to turning it on and being sort of energized with it. That's a theory. So, final words. My key concept is that psychic intuitive abilities is influenced by tools, influenced to focus on particular subjects, actions, feelings. Another key concept is that the psychic intuitive opens up possibility of this particular aspect in communications and communicates with the divine or their higher selves to add more detail using their soul abilities. I would be especially drawn to items that give broad influence, like a pendulum. Giving a yes or no answer is one thing, depending on which way the pendulum swings. Having the psychic intuitive open up to the possibilities, the details of why yes or no, the details of what is to come because of the yes or no. This is where the soul abilities can be exercised and utilized, and this is at the heart of divination. It's not the tools. It's inspiration from the tools. It gives you direction. Okay? It starts the engine, but you put it in drive. It's the narrow focused information that you can pass along where someone would come back because they felt that connection with you, that you were truly connected, that the stuff that you said, there's no way she could have gotten that right, or he. There's no way that person could have gotten that right. Yeah, they were using tarot cards, and yeah, they had sort of a broad meaning with those tarot cards, but when she went in, or he went into, or they went into that psychic intuitive place, that's the information that I listened to, and that's the information I took away, and that's the information that was proven true or false, but hopefully true. And then they're going to come back. And my reputation is on the line too. So don't be going around giving psychic intuitive readings and not not playing the game right, because it makes the rest of us look bad. So in the end, using divination is one way to give focus to psychic messaging or intuitive knowings. Divination uses tools to focus on the place of imagination, where you are open to influence. Also, in the end, it is your trust in your soul abilities and soul skills that enhance the message. Give detail and evidence to your message. This cannot be done alone with just tools. There it is. I did it. All right, time to wrap her up here. All right, that does it for this episode of NextGEN Medium, the podcast. Why don't you get a hold of me and we'll do a little consult for you and I can help you with your development. I call it a development session. It's about 45 minutes. We talk and we do a video chat. I get to know you. I like to know a little bit about your background, some of the stuff you've experienced. I want to know what your soul abilities are so I kind of assess things. And it also gives me a direction of where you need to go with your development because I want you to see this stuff and I want you to start believing it. If you don't believe it, I want to get you to start believing it, to even have that possibility as part of your brain. Because once I can get you in there, then things start rolling and then the world starts expanding and then you are connected to the sky and it is amazing. Um, I think that's one of my big motivating factors is just what I experienced. It's just blown my mind. And I see it happening for other people that I am helping with their development or I've done a reading for and have stayed connected with. And there's one person in particular I'm thinking of right now, and her world is becoming so her world that seemed impossible is becoming her possibility now, and I think she's going through quite an expansion, and it keeps expanding, and, man man, does that feel good to see that. But yeah, so we would sit down and chat. Oh, I didn't mean to go into that, but, yeah, one of the things is just to have someone who's a couple steps ahead of you, who feels comfortable in what they do. I am still a student. I will always be a student, but, I could definitely make for a good mentor because I where you're at, I was at a couple years ago. Or maybe, you are steps ahead of where I was a couple years ago, but, um, I might be further along in the process, and I can help you get there. I've crossed the threshold, and I'm extending my hand out. So, go to my website, nextgenmedium.com, and schedule a development session. You can also check out the blog, vlog, and other podcasts at nextgenmedium.com. Add your name to get emails about upcoming Next Gen Medium stuff, educational stuff, contests for free readings, and a lot more. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest for all your social media liking needs. Until next time, have a pleasant rest of your day. To all of you listening from Cleveland, Ohio, Tel Aviv, Israel. I don't think I said that right. Tel Aviv, Israel, and Rybin, Poland. I think I said that right. Be safe, and I'll chat with you later. See ya. Bye. All right. Hey, I think I did okay this time. Maybe a little scattered, but it'll sound better in the podcast. But you get to see it all and see what probably, some stuff that gets cut in the process. But yeah, hey, did you watch this all the way through? Can you do me a favor and smash the like button? I say it so casually. Can you please smash that for me? Check out the links in the description for the podcast, the blog, social media website. You can donate at nextgenmedium.com so I can keep doing the podcast, so I can keep the website running. And you can also book an appointment. You want to do a reading? You want to do a development session? Hey, I'm up. I'm up for whatever you want to do. And we can even do both. Check that out at nextgenmedium.com. And that does it. Stay warm, stay safe. And I'll chat with you next week. All right. Done talking. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.